Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Voices of Sussex. I am Gerard James, and I recently sat down with Dr. John Connolly, the president here at Sussex County Community College, and this is what he had to say.
I just fell in love with living things and the environment, basically the earth that sort of sustains us and whatnot. So that was a real passion and a love for me. That led me to study hard in school. I had a fifth grade English teacher. His name was Mr. English. He was a science teacher. My apologies. Kind of funny. But he taught us as fifth graders about the human body. And I just found it absolutely fascinating. I loved that more than anything else I'd ever experienced before. So I really fell in love with science and biology and all the rest of that through that. And I continued with my studies until I got to college. And I went to college in Maine. No surprise there. I studied biology. I did extremely well there. I was sort of, in one respect, I was sort of the top student there by virtue of what is known as the Webster Chester Prize I received there. So it was a great honor to me, and it was a lot of fun. And the difference for me is that there were all of my compatriots in the biology major, like 90 or 100 of us. They worked very hard. They all pretty much wanted to go to medical school or dental school or veterinary school. That's what they were there for. I didn't want any of those things. I wanted to teach. I wanted to share. Because the thing people forget about teaching is it's sharing. Sharing a piece of yourself, sharing what you value, sharing your knowledge. The sharing is sort of a special thing. It's a thing of the heart. Either you love it or you don't. And that's what I cared about. And what it meant for me while studying is that I cared about the learning. I've talked with you folks in the class about it. The only thing I really care about for you folks is what are you going to remember 5 years from now?
Right.
5 years from now, I want you to remember some stuff. That's really what revolves around this particular class. And for me, I know as a fact, all of those folks who went with me through college and whatnot remember practically nothing of what they studied. And I remember everything because they focused on the grades to get them to medical school. And I focused on the love and the learning. And that was sort of a huge difference. And it's just continued to propel me. And that's how did you get here? A piece of it is you have to love what you do.
Right.
Then you immerse yourself in it, and it's not work.
Right.
And then as you progress and move forward, you're naturally good at it. And so you advance. So your career, your ability to earn money, your ability to make a difference, all of that happens because you start with loving this thing. My dad always said to me, he said, look, don't focus on, what job you're going to get. No matter what job you're talking about, there is always room in the marketplace for a good one, whatever it is. If you're good, there's always a place for you. Not going to be good if you don't love it. Because if you don't love it, you're not going to commit yourself to it. So those are all big things. So then after that, I did teach. I got out of college. I taught 7th and 8th graders, and I absolutely loved it. Totally loved it. Would have done that for forever, but I hated the parents. The parents were awful. They're just terrible. They know better. They know this. My Johnny is perfect. My daughter Sally is the this, the that, the other thing. Or they didn't believe in their own kids. That was painful, Most of those parents I ran into were saying, don't you understand how good my child is? I say, yeah, but,
It's always the but.
Right? And then there's the other side of it where said, well, I know that my son isn't very good or my daughter isn't very good. Or well, no, actually, let me tell you where they're good. Let me tell you where you maybe you don't understand or know your child as well as you think you do. Those kinds of things. So that was all great, but I couldn't stand it anymore. Parents were just, I didn't like it. I didn't like the parents. So I then went back to graduate school and I studied at an environmental graduate program. I focused on forestry and trees and tree biology. Then after that, I went to more graduate school. I got my PhD. So I got my master's first, and then I got my PhD, and I did that in Maine. So my master's I got in Connecticut. My PhD I got in Maine at the University of Maine in biology. And there, of course, I was surrounded by all kinds of nature, trees, and whatnot. And my research was in basically wood rot. Not a surprise to you. Wood that rots turns brown.
Right. Yes.
Right. Okay.
I never would have thought that. That's
yeah. So
okay.
Wood rot. A tree lives 50 to 150 or 200 years, and then it falls on the ground. And it takes about 100 years for it to completely decompose. So the impact that a tree has on an ecosystem can last twice as long as it's alive. Why? Because there's all that organic material, all the nutrients and so forth that we talk about in our class, and also what it does to the soil around it. You go 15 feet away from a very large fallen tree, that tree is influencing the soil characteristics. That far away. That makes a difference inside of an ecosystem. Thousands of trees that die and fall and start to decay and all the rest of that. A lot of chemistry involved. And then there's sort of the microbiology piece. Who is rotting it? Bacteria, yes, but it's mostly fungi. Ants play a role in beating it up and chewing it up. But the fungi that are there do a lot. So I spent a lot of my time in my PhD studying the physiology of fungus. Doing that work, I developed an allergy. So I'm very sensitive to the presence of fungi in the air, spores, and that. So I did that. And my objective was to become a professor and teach what I loved. So I did that. And I was at a university in Maine, the Hudson University. I was there, I taught, I did research, loved it. And along the way, I became a leader among the faculty. I then got a part-time job. I was faculty and also part-time. I had administrative duties, the assistant chief academic officer, and then I became the associate dean of science and humanities while I was a professor too, so I was doing both. And I liked this administration thing. Why? Because I felt like I could help. I could help students in a different way, and I could help faculty, frankly, to be better than they were. Because they were bad, but because they weren't given as much support, I thought, as they should have. They didn't have a champion who understood their life. What's it like to be a professor? So my boss's boss, the president of Hudson University, once said to me, John, you make a really good president, okay? And that's where it started. But continued on my career, and I knew that if I ever wanted to be a president, I'm going to have to get out of here, see more of the world. So I went from Maine to Texas. I was a dean. No two different places on planet Earth than Maine and Texas. Two really different places.
Very different. Wow, totally two different worlds.
Two different worlds. Absolutely.
Culture shock.
Yeah, total culture shock. I then went from Texas to Wyoming. That's an interesting one because Wyoming is literally an exact combination of Maine and Texas.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Never been to Wyoming.
Yep, absolutely. The down-to-earthness of Maine people, their quiet reserve, spend a lot of time watching, observing, and listening, not much time talking.
I like those people.
Okay. Texas, big hair, big makeup, big talking, big state, big ambitions. It's big. And there's a superficiality of the relationships in Texas. They will be your best friend right away. And some will stab you in the back and some won't. But most importantly, that's it. That's the end of it. You are their friend at this superficial level, and that's the end of it. No depth. Coming from the Northeast, I was more accustomed to depth in relationships. And in Maine, it's all about depth. They don't create friendships for like 10 years. They will know you as an acquaintance for 10 years.
Wow.
You have to
earn that trust.
You got to earn that. They're like cats, okay? You got to earn that. And it takes forever to do that, which means that for a while in Maine, if you live in Maine, it's lonely. Wyoming, quiet reserve. They respect the relationship, that it takes time, but they believe that everything's possible.
Right.
In Maine, they believe nothing's possible. Okay, and so it's just this, the humility in Maine is out of control. And in Wyoming, the humility is properly placed as in, I believe what I see can happen, and I'm going to make it happen. I'm going to be chill. I'm going to talk slow. That's the way they sort of roll in Wyoming. After being in Wyoming, I then went back to Maine. I went to Maine for college, to Connecticut for graduate, back to Maine for graduate school. I went to Western Pennsylvania for my first job. I then went back to Maine at Hudson University. I then went to Texas. I then went to Wyoming. And then went back to Maine. Maine is an anchor place for me. I was born and raised in New Jersey. And in 2015, a tragic accident happened to my mom, living in Basking Ridge, New Jersey. It affected my dad, too. My brother lived in Sparta. I knew that my brother shouldn't carry the whole load, the whole burden of two siblings. So I had to figure out a way to do something if I could. I was on the presidential track. My next move was to be president someplace. A job opened up here. A job opened up in many other places. I applied in Connecticut. I applied in West Virginia. I wanted to be someplace rural, and I wanted to be in a small community where I could make a difference. I'd been in Houston. Didn't want to be in a place that big. And so I got the job here, and I picked this place because it had an independent, local, community-oriented board of trustees. They would be my boss. That this college received me well and my message. My message was basically very much about how love of my discipline, love of biology, but also love of people. If you do not love people, then that doesn't work, in my opinion. For people who had skills but no love in their heart, those people were lousy leaders. I wanted to be a leader that led in terms of the love for the work, the love for the people who do the work, all the rest of it. Critically important. And I wanted to run the experiment as a science. What happens at a college when love is the leading principle? When this radical notion that love can pierce all of the problems in an organization, all kinds of bad stuff happens, inefficiencies. If you lead in a different way, how does it change? So I wanted to take that challenge on, sort of in the middle of that experiment, 8 years into it to see how it's going. And it's about culture, it's trying to change a culture, about bringing people along. And it's generally been successful, but not everybody buys into it. Not everybody believes in other people enough with charity and graciousness and gratitude and generosity. It doesn't always work. That's how I got here.
You talk about a lot of love, bringing people together. And of course, not everybody is going to buy in. It's the nature of people. While you're sitting here telling your story, I'm sitting here thinking, I've met a lot of people. I don't think I've ever met anybody from Maine. And being in the military, I've met people from South Dakota, Jamaica, everywhere.
Yeah.
And I've been all over the world. So, it's interesting to hear your perspective of people there. And I was born in Ohio. I was raised in Tennessee. Southern hospitality. We'll let you in. We're going to keep you at a distance for a little while. You definitely have to earn that trust. And then, like Texas, people will stab you in the back. As the president of the college, what have been some of your goals? Like you said, you've been in the experiment for 8 years now. It's going quite well. What have been some of your goals throughout that time, and even going into the future, that you've wanted to accomplish here?
Well, there's the practical operational stuff, which is, that's quote unquote the job, and that's the way I am measured in terms of my performance and all the rest of that. And so that's important to me. And then there's sort of these other cultural elements, the experiment that, is sort of running in the background. And since being here, first in terms of successes, so to speak, the first would be, frankly, trying to save the institution. This institution was anywhere between 3 to 5 years from closing when I arrived.
Oh.
The financial situation of the college was desperately bad. We had been shrinking in enrollment. And so, having a college and then having an aspiration to grow and grow and grow and grow, we got to grow, okay? That's not my thing. But one thing's for sure, if you're shrinking, okay, you got a problem. If you have 35,000 students and you're shrinking, your very existence is not in jeopardy. Okay?
All right.
You can shrink to 25,000 and you still got 25,000 students. Okay. You shrink to 15,000 students. You shrunk almost by half, but you still have 15,000 students. If you start out with 1,700 students and you shrink down to 900, you don't have much of a college left.
Right.
We hadn't been at that place. But when I arrived, we did have about 1,600 students. But when I first arrived, and I'd say 1,600 students sort of equivalent, 6 years before I arrived, there were 3,000. We were cut in half like in 5 or 6 years, and then I arrived, and we were still shrinking.
Could that have been a fault of state funding, or just the local community wanting to go somewhere else for their college experience instead of staying here at home?
State funding plays a role. The county's funding plays a role, but not about enrollment. If you do not have at your college a product people will buy, you're going to lose enrollment. And this institution was not paying attention. In my opinion, when I arrived, I said, okay, there's some changes that need to happen here. The first and most significant one is that a comprehensive community college honors the transfer mission, English, history, economics, so that somebody can study freshman and sophomore level biology and so forth, and then transfer to a four-year institution. And that saves them a lot of money. They can come here for $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, then transfer to a four-year institution where they'll spend more money to be sure. But they got a bargain opportunity here with that. Critically important. Not the only thing comprehensive community colleges are supposed to be. Comprehensive community colleges are also supposed to be training people for a 2-year degree. And that 2-year degree is worth something in and of itself, in the workplace and in life, right? That's it. They go to college for 2 years and that's it. They graduate with an associate degree and they're good to go. Well, what kind of things? Well, get an associate of arts degree or an associate of science degree in graphic design and then become a graphic designer and go right to work as a graphic designer doing all kinds of amazing and cool stuff and blah, 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 blah. Okay? Start out making, $37,000 and then in 5 years you're making 62.
Or having your own graphic arts business on the internet with technology today.
That's right. That's right. So all of those things could and should be possible, and this college needed to focus on that. That specific example, graphic design, we were. Okay. Criminal justice. Okay. That is a very career-oriented one. We had criminal justice. There was that too. But we didn't have automotive. We didn't have welding. We didn't have construction trades. We didn't have diesel. We didn't have electrical line worker. We didn't have optics technology. We had just started an agriculture program. Lots of things that we weren't doing, and we needed to start to develop those programs. And so we basically became a comprehensive community college by basically teaching the occupational programs that prepare people for a profession and those that prepare them for the long term for any profession. You're not grounded in mathematics and the ability to write and the ability to think. You're going to be limited in what you're going to be able to do. There's training around that. Why do you think that in our class, the very first thing I talk about is critical thinking?
Right.
You have to be able to critically think, not exactly the same as problem solving. Problem solving is a piece of critical thinking. So,
a very small part of it.
Okay, right. So that's right, a very small part of it. So it's one of those things. Knowing what you know, being able to think about your thinking, being able to understand what a complicated text in a book is really saying. Start to stockpile all these things about thinking and learning how so that you'll be ready for any profession
right.
that you want to do. That's the work of general education, liberal arts education, and so forth, all that stuff. We have to be doing both, and we're only doing one piece. We were doing that in a community, substantially a blue-collar sensibility community, and we weren't doing anything for them. And what about kids coming out? They're 17, 18 years old from high school, and they're not sure what they want to do. Then we start throwing college algebra in. You got to trust us. This is valuable. Come on. Give these young people something to sink their teeth into, that they can see and touch and feel that it has value to them. Automotive, they can see and feel it. And then, okay, look, if you want to talk about the timing of the engine, you got to understand ratios. And it's going to look like this. And then, oh my God, now you're starting to talk about mathematics. And then mathematics becomes relevant. Trigonometry becomes relevant if you're going to build something. Look, the pitch of the roof, it's an angle. You better know angles. All right? All that stuff. Mathematics becomes relevant. What about writing? Okay, construction trades. Here's a good one. Why should a construction trades major take a public speaking? Here's why. This is taught to me by a construction trades professor, in Wyoming. He said, John, ethical conduct, lesson he taught me, ethical conduct comes very much also in terms of what your customer. If you are an ethical human being, but you're a lousy communicator, they may, of course, as the project progresses, view you as unethical because you did not effectively communicate, speak to them about what's going on with the proper vocabulary or with just the depth and the detail or with the whatever it might be. But if you are uncomfortable talking with a person, speaking in front of a person, having confidence, okay, this is what we're going to do. We're coming into your kitchen, we're going to tear it apart. That's going to take blah, 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 all the rest of that kind of stuff. Look, I can't tell you how many times people get accused in construction of being unethical, doing this, lousy bums, all the rest of that, because a contractor, their fault was not being unethical. They didn't communicate effectively what they're going to do. And you think that perception of them as an unethical person goes away? It does not. It sticks like mud. My students have to graduate with effective communication skills, or I won't graduate them.
Really?
Yeah, that's coming from a contractor guy. That's how important he felt. Public speaking, communicating effectively was to him. All this stuff is related. We as a college, we've got to do it well. We have to get on top of it and do it properly. But we started to, and we got the word out, and we tried to get the word out about the good stuff that we're doing. We focused on trying to bring students here, frankly, for athletics, picked up recruiting. Okay? It became important. Why? Because students come here for an automotive program, come here for a construction trades program. They come here for a graphic design program. They come here to study biology in the biology program. Also come here for no other reason than for the soccer program, or the baseball program, or the softball program. What value does that have? I'm telling you, worked at a lot of institutions. Those students, most of them, they come to college to play. That's why they're in college. Not necessarily to go to college. But guess what? They are in college. They learn and they study and they hang in there. You're in the military. It's an expression I don't know intimately, but I understand there is something serious about it. No person left behind, no man left behind. Okay?
Yes, sir.
A football team is no different. No guy left behind. Someone is sort of failing in grades or whatever else, they stand with each other. Or let's say the player's really good. They're really going to stick by him because next year they're going to need that player and blah, 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 blah. What does that mean? It means that instead of a player coming to just for 1 year, they come for 2. Some players, depending if they get injured, they might be here for 3. It's about keeping them in the game of life, game of football, softball, soccer, the game of college. That's why athletics. Athletics build character. They build character, they build grit, they build determination, they build leadership. That's really serious stuff. That's some serious learning. And they also learn how to write, how to think, and all the rest of that while they're in school. When we got to that place over the first, 3-4 years while I was here, it was all very, very intentional. This is what we need to do. We want to be successful. We want to stop shrinking. And we did. We slowed down. Our shrinking slowed down. So about just before COVID, we had shrunk only 2% before the previous year. But we were still shrinking. We're still shrinking because there's just not enough people in this county. Another reason for athletics and optics technology and electrical line work. We needed to bring people from outside of the county to the college who would travel. And then you get an apartment and stay here. So I'm going to go to college, to this college. Not enough kids here in this county. It was working. He was successful. And then we got hit by COVID. And everybody got hit by COVID. And that was bad. Okay. So fortunately, the federal government stepped forward, CARES Act dollars. And so we were not economically in hardship. We also were in a better financial situation because we had taken the necessary steps, the difficult stuff, to be lean, to stay alive, to survive. Because our budget was literally getting smaller.
Right.
Okay. Fewer people, less budget, no more state money, no more county money. There is no money. There we are. Okay. So, and we managed that well. We did a very, very good job with that. Then COVID came to an end. We'd had 1/2 a season of football underneath our belt when COVID had resolved. Continued to do what we were doing. There are operational things we were doing in admissions that really helped. But then we started so that last year we grew by 3%. We actually grew. And it was it was a real 3% as opposed to a fake 3%, because play with the numbers, right?
Right.
That was huge. There's been the first time that I've been president that we grew. This fall we grew 12%. Massive, right? So it's working. It's happening. Feeling like we've got that. Now, you asked me the question about what have you done and what's been successful and whatnot, and then there's there's basically that love piece. How do we make it happen? As you have said, human beings are human beings, and some folks are converted and some aren't. Some have their own version of what it means. Care for each other. You don't necessarily understand it all the same way. At least we have sort of a talking point to point to, and it is unquestionably better than it was before. I will not have a member of my executive team who misbehaves. I'll tell you, every place I've ever been, there are people who intentionally misbehave. They're bad actors. They enjoy being bad actors. They've risen in the ranks from whatever position to a higher position to a higher position, to deans and vice presidents and presidents, by abusing power. They love power, love how it feels, and then they use it, they weaponize it, and they do whatever they want to do. People in decisions of power need to in positions of power, they need to make difficult decisions. And for those folks who are not in the room, if you're not in the room when the decisions are made, you don't know what's going on.
Right.
And so you often think the worst or whatever. Why are they doing that? Why? Okay. And what I will tell you is that is a natural thing, but I'm the dude in the room with the executive team that makes these decisions. And I will not tolerate at this institution the stuff I heard at the other institution. They speak bad of others continuously. They mean others harm, and I won't stand for it. But some people I do.
Right.
Okay? Have to have the self-control and the discipline and the love in your heart. What is it that I don't know? The humility, say, what do I not know in this mix of things that's preventing me from seeing it correctly? I need to see it correctly. And so that curiosity, that humility, that desire to learn about people, about particular people, about processes. Most importantly of all, is that, okay, do you love them? Yeah. Whatever's going on here, it's terrible. I love that person. It makes all the difference.
As the president of the college, how big are you on student engagement? With yourself as an open door policy, so what's going on with the student body. Because as you said, you're growing now. It's really important to know how your student body feels about a college. So, how are you about your engagement and things that could help the college grow even more?
Being attentive to the needs, the aspirations, the wants of the students and so forth. Now the money starts to come in, right? Because students will want us to do everything that the students want us to do. Everything that they want us to do is going to be cool. I guarantee it. They're going to want us to do this cool thing and that cool thing and the other cool thing and the other cool thing. And they're right. And I can't do it all. And that's really frustrating. And that's where, if the state only gave us more money, if I didn't have to run this institution basically on a strict business model, you need a better subsidized model to serve students where they're at. Things that they need, okay, that are invisible to the business operations piece of this, right? It's the game. It's the tough part. But sort of open door policy sort of a thing. I've got, so there's Corey Homer, there's James Gaddy, there's Kathleen O'Kay, there's Nancy Gallo, a little bit Stan Kula, there's Jason Fruit. These are members of my executive team. They're out there as best they can with the limited amount of time that they have, listening to their people. Their people are mostly employees and whatnot, but they have contact and communication with students. Corey Homer has a lot of contact and communication with students.
Yes, he does.
Because he's over the Student Success Center, and he makes it a point to be out and about and around, right? Okay? So what do? I rely heavily on him to help me get things calibrated. I want to be more accessible, obviously, and out and about. And how do I force that? By being in class, okay? You guys in environmental science and in my online lab in an online environment, this is where I get the most contact with students. And then I get contact with students through Corey, frankly. And it used to be a fellow by the name of Curtis Biggs. Curtis Biggs was the dean of students here when I first got here. When I first got here, the place was absolute catastrophe. As I said, we were 3 to 5 years away from closing. Now, if we didn't fix it, we were working on a deficit budget, and we had no money in the bank. At that time, we were about 5 months rotating money away from not being able to make payroll. People work here, and they weren't going to get a paycheck. And if we weren't managing things properly, that would have happened. So it was really serious. I brought in an emergency crew. I brought in a guy by the name of Dr. James Baker and Curtis Biggs. These guys were buddies of mine, frankly. I brought them in temporarily because I needed people around me I could trust. I didn't know anybody here. I needed my team who I could trust. And I said, mission here, first of all, is love. It's about loving people. We got to save this place. We had to sort of do that. When Curtis was here, he made sure that I had contact with students. Introduced me, He forced me to make it to this game and that game and the other game and whatnot. Because he was my friend, he felt perfectly entitled to say, John, you have to be at this game. You got to be here. You got to be there. And so that helped me to sort of manage my time. As time goes by, natural, I've gotten more involved, more and more involved in many things, both inside the college, operationally, because we don't have enough people in the community. Why is being in the community important? Because, again, in order to keep students coming, we have to have a good image in the community. Sussex County Community College is a winner. I want to go there. That image, that requires that we be out in the community. Basically, it requires that I be out in the community, continuously spreading the message, receiving information and input from people, responding to that in a particular way. It's critically important. So students, if I had more time, well, hey, my door pretty much is open. You just got to say, Sally, how you just, and we took down this silly, there was a door here.
Oh.
So this thing was a security door. So security door panel here and here. And you had to tap in, punch in the code, where you could come in.
Okay.
This is not welcoming. Okay? This is nonsense, right? And so when I first got here, I told our security chief, I want the glass wall taken down. And he didn't know me from anybody. But that's a security problem. No, it's not. What's wrong? What do you think is going to happen? People could just walk in. Yeah, that's right. Right. So it took me, Gerard, 7 3/4 years.
I was about to say that was
take
up.
That thing down.
That was up last semester.
Oh yeah. It took me that long to finally get to a place. And a gentleman that you know, frankly, inadvertently or intentionally, I'm not sure, helped me to get it done. Jason Bohm.
That does not surprise me.
Jason, he said, we'll go about this, okay. And, conversations started happening in the staff senate. They said, look, what is it with the door thing, okay? We have different levels of how safe people get to be, and the president gets to be safe, and other people don't get to be safe. I said, yeah, and I've been trying to take that door down for, 7 3/4 years. Fussing that happened in the staff senate gave me my opportunity. Take that thing down. Take it down.
As the student vets, we actually like to joke and say this is probably the safest campus in the state because definitely with us here, I'm a combat vet and there's a few more of us. It doesn't matter what happens. We don't need the security. We can handle it.
Yeah.
So
this is the safest campus in the state of New Jersey. It is. And there are several reasons for that. But a piece of it is that people feel safe.
Right.
And some don't feel as safe, and depends if there's something active, okay? But the idea is to create, it feels open. There's nobody sort of concerned, and that creates an emotional reaction of safety. This is a good and safe place. That's incredibly useful. But back behind that is 300 security cameras, okay? And, knowing where people are and all the rest of that kind of stuff. And we have, for our size, we have more security officers than any place else without it feeling like it's a militaristic kind of an approach. When I first arrived, we had about the same number of officers, but it felt militaristic. It felt, they were angry security officers.
Oh, that's no good.
Oh, yeah. They in your face. What are you doing? What are you doing? I mean, like, come on. Really? Seriously? And you wonder why our enrollment is dropping? Because we're not a friendly place if you're doing that. So it should be safe. It should be friendly. Security folks should be available, but they should be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Just, hey, how's it going? Blah, blah, blah. They're a part of the mojo of happiness, of friendliness, of helpfulness. That's what you want. It's taken a really, really, really long time to get to a better place. I think we're just now at a place, the folks are on board my agenda. And that's the thing, is that, Dr. Connolly, the president, can't you just snap your fingers and make it happen? No, you can't, because there are people too. And respecting the people who do the work is an important element of leadership too.
Right.
You have to sort of bring them along. And frankly, some people can't be convinced, and so they need to sort of leave, And it took us a while to get the last of the security folks who didn't appreciate my friendliness approach. They wanted there to be, if you don't have a little bit of fear, if you don't have a little bit of intimidation, you're not going to be able to keep the place safe and secure. I say nonsense. It's about, as you said, if there's a problem, You and your buddies, you'll be on it.
Yeah.
Okay? You'll know what to do. And our security folks, I want them to be as friendly until.
Right.
And then it's all business. And, I fought the Board of Trustees to make sure that our officers, that we had retired police officers that were armed. It was very important to me. I wanted them to be armed. And we got them. Got 4 or 5 retired police officers that were armed. So we're armed. We got security cameras. And now they're on notice to be friendly.
Okay.
and visible. So, and that came about as a result of some input from students and some input from the staff, and that this is now possible. That's that openness and receptive.
Right. So if the student government,
Yes.
as the president with the executive meetings and everything, said they wanted to come sit in, just so you can get just that extra input from the students, just because you may not be able to get everything from Corey or from any of your people that you have out, or from class,
Right.
Because the SGA, they actually converse with the majority as a whole. How would you feel if they were to come in and sit in a meeting once, twice a month, just to be able to get that extra engagement?
I think there are a couple of challenges with that, but the idea is exactly right. And I think the place to start with that idea is in reverse. And that is for the SGA, when they have their governance meetings, is to invite the college president or the college vice president or the other vice president into their meeting. And then there can be conversation about that. When you've got a governance body, got particular work that's in their domain to do, inviting people in to, whether as guests or as to testify, because if it's about information, you might be sort of, okay, so we'd like to ask you some questions and whatnot, so we can make a good decision about information that's outside of our knowledge band that you folks have got and all the rest of that, right? I would, for the executive team, bringing guests into the executive team is something that we can do, should do. I'm starting to do. Having SGA representatives in, that's phase 2. Phase 1 is SGA invites us, and then we can have conversations. Then will be that sort of get that started, and then we can start to have SGA representatives in. And we meet once a week, so probably it'll be like twice a semester. So we have SGA folks come in, and probably the way we do it, because some of the stuff that we discuss is sensitive bit of information.
Oh, right.
Okay, it's personnel based. You don't want to hear about, okay, well we got this person, and they did something bad. They're a custodian. They did something bad. We don't want this. We don't want to hear.
Some things just should not get out.
That's right. That's right. It is perfectly, totally possible to have the SGA president and vice president in the executive team meeting twice a semester for half of the meeting. Totally doable. First step, though, is to have you folks invite us in. The challenge of all of this with the student piece is the following, is that we, the staff, tend to be here with a sort of long-term view of the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5. Students, they come and they're here for a year or 2, and then they're gone. And what we find for your institutions, you can create an initial relationship with a student in their freshman year. Invite them to a table of responsibility their sophomore year. They then become a leader their junior year, and they're also a leader their senior year. You get 2 years of leadership, 1 year of engagement, and sort of the get-to-know-you phase. That's a lot of time with any one student.
Right.
Here, the experience is every year. You get to know them, you build them, they start to lead, and then they're gone.
That turnaround rate is...
And you only really get 1 year with them.
Right.
And do anything real. And now, if there was always another great leader falling behind, it's not actually that big a problem. But what we find is that great leader, lousy leader, lousy leader, lousy leader, great leader. Lousy leader, great leader, lousy leader, lousy leader. And we're all getting jerked around because we can't keep the steadiness, the continuity of the leadership thing, because not all students are good at it. Some are lousy, some are exceptional. Some might hire tomorrow,
Right.
Okay? So it's tough that way. But for me, let's put it this way. My door, I do close my door, but that's usually because I'm in meetings on Zoom.
Right.
Okay. But if the door is closed, Sally Ha's door is open. Knock on Sally Ha's door and say, you know if Dr. Connolly's available? If any student, anytime were to drop by and do that, I'd be thrilled. I would be thrilled.
Do you get that?
Never. It makes me sad. when I'm working with a student, it's the best part of my day.
Right. With growth of the school is pretty outstanding. Definitely since COVID and nobody knew what was going to happen. A lot of the groups are now starting to formulate, be able to see who is who.
It's very exciting.
And I think that could also help towards the growth. And especially, as a vet, and I always use that as an example because it's the easiest. I remember moving up here and trying to figure out where to go to school. And I remember looking online, and the vet program here was what drew me here. As I've gone through here, I've even watched it grow, just being here, the non-traditional, the vet population all grow. What can you say to the groups just to be able to just keep growing and to keep the camaraderie here for the people, who are on the fence about going to school?
I would say it is very important to do two things, and they're not always perfectly in sync. The first thing is to keep it real. Got to keep it real, or what our lives are like and what our experience is like and whatnot. And at the very same time, try to talk, think positively and optimistically about the college anywhere and everywhere we go. Now, I don't think that there's any faking going on here. When I had a partner in crime, so to speak, on the board of trustees, his name was Bill Curcio, great board chair. And we spent a lot of time together planning, plotting, strategizing, and what we need to do and how we should do it and all these other things. A lot of that's about having to deal with the politics of the county, reality. But as we're doing so, we would go out to dinner. He'd treat me to a dinner. Or a lunch or a breakfast, we go out, and he always asked the waiter or the waitress, "Are you in college?" And most often they'd say yes. So where do you go? Most often they would say Sussex County Community College. How do you like it? He would do this right in front of me all the time. The student doesn't know who we are.
Right.
We're just two dudes, okay? And so, oh, it was great, blah, 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 blah. Every single time, George, students have something really good to say. I mean, they don't have anything negative or neutral to say, which always stunned me. He said, "John, this is what I mean. This is the work that you're doing." And he always did it as a point. Because he did it on his own. Anytime he went out, he always asked. So he always kind of knew what the answer was going to be. And I'm telling you, he did it to me while I was sitting like 10 times. Okay? And every time it was the same thing. It was sort of breathtaking, that we are giving these students a good experience, and other students need to know that too. So it was speaking highly of and all the rest of that. It's speaking well of the institution wherever we go, despite its imperfections.
Right.
Okay? And that makes a huge difference. It's taken us a long time because the entire county knew that this college was basically about to close. That's the word on the street. When I first got here, I would go to the local bars, pretend I'm nobody, okay, and find out what the scuttlebutt was, right? And the scuttlebutt was, this is not a very good school. It's not nearly as good as CCM. You should go to CCM. You know about all the problems happening at the college, so forth and so on. That's what I arrived to. That is not what's happening now. And that is intentional effort and whatnot, and getting the word into the bars and wherever else it is. But we have to sort of be that too.
Right.
We have imperfections, to be sure. And it's not, it's sort of fake it until you make it in part. But even when you are trying very hard to address all the imperfections, you're not faking it. You're paying attention.
Right.
And that's the most important thing. Gotta be paying attention. Where are we deficient? What can we do, and so forth. Then it comes back to money, and it's hard. It's hard on me because I can see what we could do, what we should do, how we can, and blah 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 blah. And we don't have the money to do all the stuff.
Right.
What could we do with the veterans program if we had another full-time person to support the veterans, another full-time person and a part-time person for all kinds of different programming that we could do? Okay. Maybe it was you or Josh say, well, what if we had more of a highlight, focus on veterans?
That was Josh.
Okay. Wouldn't it be cool if we could do that? Yeah, if there were 76 hours in every day, people like, Corey Homer and Jason Bohm, James Gaddy, and Todd Poltersdorf, and Diane Pienta-Led, and all of these people working their butts off. They make 72 hours in it, and they're working themselves to death. But it'd be better if we had more great people to do this kind of stuff for the students.
Could it be easier if maybe some of the students, if we could actually take the lead on some of that? We can put stuff out there. Just staff can only do so much, right? As the student body, we would be able to push forward with initiatives to get words out. Because,
Yes.
There's a lot of times, and you're busy, you're talking to this person, that person in class, you have so much to do. Your mind's everywhere. A lot of people on campus, they'll say, well, what do we have going on? There's I don't know. You can go to a football game and there's 30 people in the stands and people are like, but I didn't know there was a football game. So how do you think we could get a better advertisement push out? Just like Josh said, for spotlighting things.
I would, so there's several things here. The SGA is a governance entity. And I like to sort of tell people that we've got, there's several things happening at the college. We operate the college and we run the college. Running the college means lots of decisions by decision makers. Operating the college is all the decisions and the work that gets done. In between operating and running is governing. And that's where we come together. Those folks who operate the college get together with those folks who run the college, and we try to make decisions together about what we should do. The SGA could and should, with good leadership, sort of engaged in that. And that's sort of a piece of what you're talking about. And be involved in that. Getting the word out, doing better and whatnot, all kinds of initiatives. That would be, I would first, on that specific one, because there's so many things that, that specific one, invite Corey Homer into the SGA to talk about getting the word out to our students about what's happening, and getting the word out to the community about what's happening. Corey, how are you folks doing that? Because we don't see it as much as we'd like to. So talk to us about that. And he'll tell you all that we're doing. Okay, well, I'm never on Instagram and I don't do Facebook and all those other kinds, right? How come we don't do this or do that or do the other thing? Right?
All right.
So, and that would be useful. Why? Because you are the students. And if we're doing all kinds of Instagram stuff and you folks don't see it because you don't care, because you don't use Instagram, what are we doing? I think that'd be huge.
Right.
And then it becomes, what then after that? Okay, so Corey says, all right, well, good to know that. It's not just one meeting. Then you invite SGA leadership, not the entire SGA, but SGA leadership in, to have a conversation with Corey and Kathy Peterson, who's our marketing director. Okay, we've got that. That's just one thing. What about other stuff? So all kinds of other stuff to be discussed and whatnot. And the SGA is the means. It is the process. Having clubs and organizations, student clubs and organizations, do some of these things too. They're not governance entities. They don't make decisions. They engage in activities. So Jason Rodriguez, he makes sure that they're doing cool stuff, and they can do as much cool stuff as they want. Jason sort of makes sure that folks don't do anything bad, illegal, or unethical.
Right.
Right? Okay. And you just go. Students just do it. Just go. Governance, SGA, is a more serious matter. This is real college stuff. Okay. And you sort of get that stuff together. But we have not had yet, ever, an organized SGA that is focused on, all right, an agenda. Here's our agenda for the college. We participate in. Bring in the administration. We're invited into administrative things. We make recommendations that we think will be useful, valuable for the college, for the college's mission, and for us as students. So I'm still waiting for that to happen.
And hopefully one day.
Hoping and praying and whatnot, but yeah.
We talked about the past, but when you got here, it was in decline. We've talked about the present, how it's grown, and now, we're at 12%. Now let's talk about the future, because growing up, and it was always instilled in me through the Boy Scouts, through life, you always leave wherever you are better than what you left it. You're not going to be here forever.
Nope.
One day you are going to want to move on, either to retire, to do something else, whatever life may bring.
Yep.
What are just some of your views for the future for Sussex County?
For Sussex County and Sussex.
Well, for Sussex County Community College.
Yep.
Let's go.
I'm going to connect the two intentionally. Because
Okay.
Sussex County Community College exists. The only reason it exists is because of Sussex County, and we have to be serving our county and our community. Otherwise, forget it. Okay, and we do that by the students often populate or are residents here to do that. Moving forward, the vision for the future is don't lose that focus. We need to maintain that we are servants. This institution is servants. Mission is to serve the county and our students and learning. I'm concerned that in higher education, student success is about a degree. Student success is completing the degree. Degree with no learning. Sorry, it's about the learning. So we are here for the county. We're here for the students. What are we here for the students? Their learning. That learning is what results in their betterment. Okay? Not the piece of paper. Even the experience, the exposure. That's lovely. It is the learning. And we learn a lot from exposure. We learn a lot from experience. But they don't learn stuff here. They don't get real lessons that they take away kind of for forever. We will have failed. And so keeping that in mind for the vision of the future is essential. From some practicalities of things. That 12% growth is phenomenal. It's just crazy. It's the best in the state. I have no illusions that we'll keep that. The bigger part of that story is that before COVID, we were at one level of total number of students. Today, we are higher now than before the start of COVID.
Nice.
We are much less than we used to be 7 years ago. Let us never forget that. We're still way smaller than we used to be. And so growth, still really important. Enrollment, really important. Retaining students and not losing them, really important. That means loving them, listening to them, and all of that. And frankly, because we're under threat, not going to get any real money from the state, and we're not going to probably get any real money. So not more money from the county. We request money from the county only if it is for a specific purpose, because the county is so strapped too, unless they can find some magical source of money. So with that in mind, we're on our own with enrollment and enrollment growth for our budget. And so we need to be thinking about how we get students from outside of the county to be here, and that's residence halls. The only way we can continue to grow, maintain the growth we've already achieved by having residence halls.
So then that's putting dorms here on campus?
Yes, sir.
Is that plan already in the works, or is there...
The first step has been taken. Board of Trustees is convinced of this reality.
Oh, that's good.
That it is very good. And they have committed that we commit ourselves to the idea, residence halls up at the building in which the gymnasium is housed, Building E. We need to renovate it. That building is seriously troubled for lots of reasons. Today we could drop $5 million of HVAC, electrical, concrete, structural stuff, flooring, and modernization, and it wouldn't really feel much different.
Oh, wow.
Okay? So we could dump $5 million in for practically no gain. Or we could put $7 million into that building, renovate it and repurpose it, residence halls, and also be an athletic facility. Basically, have somebody else pay for it. I know it sounds a little bit like Donald Trump. I'm going to make Mexico pay
for the wall. Yeah,
it's kind of, but basically, it's having a business model to make it work. Okay, and it is doable. It is achievable. It is hard work. Bureaucracies in the state of New Jersey stand in our way. Some other things sort of stand in our way, but we're going to do everything that we possibly can. But make no mistake, we do not get residence halls. You got to understand, George, 28% of all community colleges in the country have residence halls.
Right.
None in the state of New Jersey have any. Most, probably 2/3 of the community colleges in New York have residence halls. If we don't get residence halls here in this rural community college, our viability is absolutely.
So with Sussex County Community College having one of the only football teams in the area.
Yes.
Has anybody ever floated the idea of even maybe putting a field here? That way now college can save money, now not having to rent out, other fields, and can bring other teams in to play here, and now, another source of revenue. And we've
floated the idea from the very beginning. Where are we going to put this? How are we going to do it? And I think about it 3 times a week, and all the rest of that. And there are plenty of ideas. There are no good ones. There are no easy ones, or else the football field would already be here.
Right.
This space out here, for example, it's just 10% too small. I either have to build it into the pond, or have to take down this building. I have to fill in the ravine, which is environmentally protected. I have to take down the greenhouse. It doesn't quite fit. Can't do it in the soccer field. That's double, triple, duty for a field. It'd be abusive, and it won't. You'll end up with a mud pit. Okay.
Right.
Is there some place there that we could do it? Well, there's infrastructure underneath those things that we can't build a field on top of that. So all kinds of issues. Corey Homer and I, we don't know how to quit. We don't know how to say. We don't know how to give up. It's just not in us. right?
Right.
So we will figure this out. We'll get it done. There's an enormous amount of land, farmland, up at the top of the hill. If only we could get a community, and they're just doing hay there. Instead of doing hay, let's level it all. Let's do agriculture there, growing turf grass as an educational value. They still get the agricultural tax abatement, which is a big, big money deal. Okay, all right? And we got a football field.
Hey, everybody wins.
Everybody wins.
Thank you, Dr. Connolly. It was a pleasure sitting down and speaking with you, and I really hope we get the chance to do this again. And thank you, everybody, for tuning in with me, Gerard James,